Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Carolina Weather Group. This is the Wednesday, August 22nd, 2018 edition of the esteemed weather podcast. And I don't even know what show number it is. I forgot to pull it up. So let me look right quick. This is show number 240. It's being slow. Number 245. So this is show 245 for the Carolina Weather Group. We appreciate you guys watching tonight. We have two guests on. We're going to kind of be talking about two different topics. Our first topic, we have the big weatherproof event happening at the Schnell Museum in Gastonia. So we have Candace Jordan on with us. She works there at the museum as the program specialist. She's also she's a meteorologist. She used to be a broadcast meteorologist, but she's not really in the TV business now. She's doing some other things. So we're happy to have Candace on. She's been a longtime friend of the show. And we also have Mark Willis on. He is the chief meteorologist for Surfline. And he's out at Nags Head, out on the Outer Banks. So we're happy to have Candace and Mark on with us tonight. So we're going to be talking a little bit first about the weatherproof event, and then we'll start about 8:20ish or so talking about our main topic tonight. But we are a live broadcast, so if there are many ways for you to interact with us, you can do that via our Facebook Live or Periscope stream. There should be a comment section rolling, so if you have any questions tonight, feel free to comment them there or even on our YouTube page. And we'll also be monitoring our Twitter page at Carolina WX Group. So if you have any questions, you can also tweet them into us. And towards the end of the show, we'll let our guests give out their social media accounts or best ways to get a hold of them. So if you're listening on the podcast, you'll be able to maybe communicate some questions via that way if you have any. So again, Mark and Candace, we're happy to have you guys on. I'm going to kind of skip our normal roundtable weather discussion. Maybe we can do that towards the end of the show. But we do have Candace Jordan on with us. Candace, happy to have you. I know we've been trying to work you on as a panelist or guest, but tonight you're on with us to talk about the big event happening this weekend.
Yeah, so Weatherproof is happening this weekend. I'm so excited. So this is my event through and through at the museum. So for everybody watching, it's the Schnell Museum in Gastonia, North Carolina. My name is Candace, obviously, and as Scotty mentioned, I am a program specialist, but I'm still a meteorologist very much through and through. So a little background about how I got there, because everybody always loves to hear that. So started out in TV. I worked in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I worked in Greenville, North Carolina, and then I freelance in Charlotte. So I'm still dabbling in TV. I just know I'm off air more than I am on air. And it's nice because I have a 10-month-old, so the schedule works out a lot better as a museum life. But I love it. I get to do a lot of different hats. So my boss is like, hey, create an event for the museum. And I'm like, okay, cool. So let's talk weather. And so I get to invite a lot of cool people, including the Carolina Weather Group. Hey, they're going to be out there and it's going to be a ton of fun.
And Candace, something that our region, the Charlotte, Columbia, Greensboro area, we've not really had a weather fest like many other locations throughout the country. So talk to us about what's going to be going on this weekend there at the weatherproof event.
So we're going to have a bunch of activities. Definitely, we are more of a family-friendly museum, so it's going to be geared towards families. So there's going to be stuff for adults to do, but stuff for kids as well. And so just a couple of things we're going to be doing. We've got a Vandegraph so they can play with lightning in a safer way. We got tornado tubes, rain sticks. We have one of our environmental educators talk about how plants use weather. One of our animal staff is going to talk about how animals and weather go together. And then got a couple crafts for the kids to do because, they always love to take something home and they always love to create something. So we definitely have that. And then the big pieces we got, I have a presentation. So we're going to be debunking weather myths. So, if there's a halo around the moon, is there any truth in what's going on? Or is it just completely bogus? So we're going to do a presentation about that. And we're also going to do a planetarium show about weather on other planets. So tying in some astronomy. So I tried to hit kind of a bunch of different topics there. And then the big highlight is going to be our exhibitors. So they're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff. So Carolina Weather Group, like I said, it's going to be there. We got a couple of TV stations. We got insurance. We've got an automotive place coming. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. We have UNCC Storms coming, ECU, quite a few people. We have a weather photographer as well. Something cool. So try to hit a multifacet of weather.
That sounds great. Looking forward to some of those programs, especially the weather on different planets. So talk to us about maybe the time of the event, where they can go to find more information, and maybe just some of those details that we need to know before we get there.
Yeah, those logistic things, So it's going to be showmuseum.org is going to be your best resource to go. There's some advanced ticketing you can do tomorrow. Otherwise, you just pay at the door. It's from 10 to 4 on Saturday. So that's when everything will start. So if you're going to come early, because early is always better. There's always more stuff early. We start running out of things at the end. And everybody gets tired. So 10 to 4 Saturday. It's in Gastonia, North Carolina. Showmuseum.org's good place. You can find the address, ticketings, and all that stuff there. What else do you need to know?
That sounds good. Shay, Chris, anybody else have any questions? I don't want to hog all the time. All right, Shay's giving me the okay side.
I'm good.
All right, Chris.
Well, one thing, it's supposed to be beautiful this weekend, so at least you don't have the excuse that it's like extremely hot and humid and you can't come. So
that's true. It's going to be a beautiful weekend and no rain in sight for the event, which is always good.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, we're excited about that. We need to dry out a little bit here in North Carolina. So I know you're naming some of the vendors. Do you have any names maybe they'll drop that people may be like, oh, I want to go see this person or that person?
Oh, well, first off, Carolina Weather Group. Hey! Now I've got WBTV's coming. So a couple people from there are coming. We've got Spectrum. Also the local TV station in Charlotte's coming. Like I said, ECU is going to be represented. UNC Charlotte's going to be represented. We are going to have Watson Insurance, so an insurance agency. We've got Atrium Health to talk about how health impacts weather. Trying to think off the top of my head. Stuart McGill Photography is going to be there. So a lot of good stuff.
I believe I saw the Weather Service tweet out about them being there. Yes. Is that true?
National Weather Service will be there. Kix will be there. 14th Weather Squadron will be there as well.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Very cool. So lots of folks signed up to go. And again, Candace, one more time before we kind of transition to our show, and we hope you'll stick around as much as you can. Again, website, is this an event maybe you can find on Facebook? Just, again, how we can get the details.
Yeah, so we have it on Facebook. If you look up the Show Museum of Natural History on Facebook, you'll find it. We're on Twitter as well, and showmuseum.org is the easiest place to find it. And I'll be in and out. I have a 10-month-old, so if I have to jet, y'all know why.
No worries. Well, we appreciate you being here, Candace, and we look forward to being out at Weatherproof this weekend, and we hope all of you guys can join. I know we have some special things planned for our little part there, so we'd love to see everyone out. It's fairly easy. It's in Gastonia, so Interstate 85, I think it's exit 20, I think?
Yep, exit 20, New Hope Road, 20. And you'll take it to Garrison. It's super easy. It's like 2 miles off the interstate, so not bad.
Yeah, not a bad place at all. So come on out to the Weatherproof event. We'd love to see you. And again, Candace, thank you so much for joining us and letting us know a little bit about it. And if there's anything we can do in the next day or two, please don't hesitate to ask.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. All right. Well, Shay, do you want to bring in our guest? I know you and Jared work a little bit more with Mark than I do, or I can do it. How do you guys want to do it? I know we normally talk about this before the show, but...
Yeah, sure. I'll bring Mark in. Mark is the chief meteorologist with Surfline. If anyone is aware of what Surfline does, they've been around for quite a while. They do wave modeling and all kinds of forecasting all around the globe. I mean, not just the United States, but in other parts of the world as well. They also have been working with Sakura, which is a Southeast regional sort of meteorology, sort of a society. And he's been working on a webcam network with them as well. So we have that to talk about, plus some new things that Surfline is doing. If you're not familiar with Surfline, go to surfline.com. Pretty easy to find. And Mark, if you want to sort of tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe how you got started with Surfline, what got you interested in wave forecasting, and how Surfline works.
First of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be with you guys tonight. And first, I guess before I go into my background and stuff, I'm really looking forward to that nice weather that Candace was talking about, because the Outer Banks has been drenched. We got something like 15 to 20 inches of rain in July, and we've had several days in August that have been rainy. So we're looking out to the dry out coming over the next several days, that's for sure. But so yeah, believe it or not, Surfline's been around since 1985. So we're 33, going on 34 years old. We were founded by Sean Collins, who had a mission to really, at the beginning, to help surfers in Southern California figure out when and where to go surfing. And he had a niche for looking at storms in the South Pacific Ocean and figuring out that about 7 to 10 days later, you'd have great waves show up in Southern California. And he became famous through predicting those waves, and that's grown obviously globally now. And but as far as my background, so I've got degrees in meteorology. I went to Florida State for my undergraduate work in meteorology. I went to University of Hawaii, which is obviously a global hotspot right now with Hurricane Lane bearing down on the region. Did my master's work there that focused on wave modeling and a couple other things. Then my career's kind of been back and forth a little bit. I actually started working for Surfline in the late 90s, and I became kind of their East Coast forecast guy. And then I jumped ship and went to the National Weather Service for about 7 years, bounced around. Moved up the chain there a little bit. Started in Eureka, California as an intern meteorologist. Then I went to the National Hurricane Center, spent a couple years down there in the Marine branch, TAFB, the Tropical Analysis and Forecast branch. Then I was in Morehead City for a few years as a forecaster. And then my last stop in the Weather Service was Eastern Region headquarters in Bohemia, New York. I managed the Marine program for the Eastern region of the NWS. And then Sean Collins, the founder of Surfline, brought me back to Surfline, I guess, in 2011. One thing became another. And I do need to mention that Sean tragically passed during that period, but his legacy lived on. And I'm back at Surfline, and all of our people, staff at Surfline, try to maintain Sean Collins' legacy of helping surfers know before they go, and really helping make surfers' lives better. But I grew up in Virginia, and my family had a home in the Outer Banks, and so I've been chasing hurricanes all my life. I was a weather nut like you guys. I grew up really enjoying winter weather, and I was a winter weather and kind of hurricane guy. But then I started surfing, and that's I guess I was in middle school or high school, and I kind of got sick. I grew up in the peninsula of Virginia, and I got sick of driving to the beach and there'd be no waves. I was like, what, I got to figure this thing out. And yeah, here I am today. So
that's yeah. I'm sorry. I was going to say some great information. What's it been like for you? Kind of teeter-totter, or not now, but you was with the Weather Service, and now you're back into maybe more of a private sector or job per se. How's that been like? Because I know with the Weather Service, we've seen a lot of change from where they weren't really social media, stuff like that, so now they're finally kind of putting their toes into that area, whereas with you guys at Surfline, you're strictly web-based, and you get to push that stuff out a little bit more frequently.
Yeah, it's obviously completely different missions. The Weather Service is to protect life and property. There's a lot of purpose and a really important mission there. And Surfline is, again, a for-profit business that the mission is really to make surfers' lives better and help people know what the waves are going to be like before they get to the beach. So completely different missions. But I love working at both. I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for both organizations. I've learned a lot about just fundamental meteorology in the National Weather Service, and the warning meteorology and stuff like that. But on the flip side, on Surfline, I've learned a lot about communication, really simplifying messaging, frequent updates, as you were alluding to, Social obviously is a massive part of what we do, and just trying to produce really engaging content, which, we want to be great scientists too at Surfline, but we got to do it in a way that is going to be really engaging for our customers.
Sure, I certainly understand that. We do our wind forecast for everybody, so it's definitely has to complement every aspect of it, not just the wave action, but also a lot of what's going on in the local communities as well. So tell us a little bit about how Surfline works with the local spots. I mean, you have California's known for multiple ride spots everywhere. How do you manage that much forecasting for not just the coastal United States, but other parts of the world as well? Is it just model driven, or do you have actual forecasters for specific areas?
Yeah, it's a major operation. So we have both of those things. So first, the group that I oversee is our team of human meteorologists. And we have 11 full-time meteorologists on Surfline, and an additional probably 15 to 20 contractors that support our what we call as our regional forecast, where we forecast for probably about 100 regions around the world. And we're trying to tell people, what are the best days of the week? What are the waves going to be like? When and where should they go surfing on more of a kind of a larger general scale? And again, we do that for about 100 locations around the world. And I can share my screen later to show you one of our core products. But we also have a modeling component as well. We've got a whole team of data scientists and physical oceanographers and wave modelers that support our model products that are really their kind of end product and goal is to produce accurate spot surf forecasts. And we do that for literally thousands of places around the world. So we find that the combination of both human meteorologists and our modeling technology is a nice complement to each other. And I still think there's a need for what the human team does, which, it obviously can be threatening as model technology improves, but there's a lot of data out there, Shay. I mean, it really can be overwhelming. And like I said, we do hourly spot surf forecasts for over 4,000 places around the world, and that can be quickly become overwhelming. So our job as humans is, first of all, to tell when the model is wrong, but also to really simplify it and turn it into some actionable information of when and where the waves are going to be good. So that way you don't have to sort through all those 4,000 different spot forecasts every hour if you don't want to, and we can provide that additional insight. Right.
So we get into we started talking about modeling, right, and how you're exacting your forecast and technicalities for the listeners out there and our viewers. Wave forecasting is very complex. The ocean doesn't send a swell from one direction every single time. There's all kinds of factors going into it: wind driven, current driven, storm driven, you name it. And I wanted to get Mark to sort of talk about how you differentiate what's coming in from the ocean and how it's coming into the coastline. I mean, you have refractive properties, all kinds of these little things that go on. How do you convey this message to folks without confusing them? So we do in meteorology, it's hard. Sometimes that's the hardest thing, is to actually just convey the message of what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's super complicated because if you're at a point in the middle of the ocean, like Hawaii, for example, it's really, really, really common to have waves coming in from all different directions, all different heights, and all different periods. We're talking about several swells that are impacting a given point in the ocean simultaneously. That's really, really common. So being able to interpret that to see which one is going to produce different things as it eventually reaches the beach or may not reach the beach, it can be challenging. And this concept is what we call as a wave spectrum. That's the concept of waves coming in from different directions, height periods and directions at a particular point. And what I tell a lot of our entry-level forecasters is the first thing, like the first year you're here, I really want you to figure out all those different components, figure out what weather systems that they came from. And then once that starts to click in your head, whether that be a weather system that's on top of you, maybe that's one that's 500 miles away that's producing a mid-period swell, or maybe it's that storm thousands of miles away in the southern hemisphere that was there 7 to 8 days ago. It's really figuring out that interrogation process that helps make wave forecasters' lives easier, and things will really start to click when you can figure out, okay, this swell came from this weather system X days ago. This swell came from that weather system over there 5 days ago, or whatever. That's really kind of the fundamental process of wave forecasting.
Very good. We mentioned Hawaii, and I know earlier in the show we wanted to kind of do a quick segment on Hurricane Lane, which is going to be sort of edging towards Hawaii. We're not entirely sure if it's going to make direct impacts, but the outwards effects of the system will definitely be affecting the islands one way or the other. So there's hurricane watches and warnings up. If you want to talk a little bit about the wave activity there, and maybe I can supplement that a little bit. We won't get too far off key here, but maybe talk about Hurricane Lane for just a little bit.
Sure. And do you want me to try to share my screen really quick so I can show you an animation, or do you want to bring that up later?
Sure.
All right. Let me see if I can do this without breaking things. And I apologize if something messes up. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So what this is our Lola deep water wave model, where we, look at winds all over the world and we run them through our physical wave model and predict what the waves are going to be over the next several days. The big thing there is obviously, the Hawaiian Islands right in the middle, kind of the middle of the screen there. And that big blob is Hurricane Lane. And Hurricane Lane is just, beginning to move out of the shadow of the Big Island. And as that occurs, we're expecting a building southeast to south swell to impact the south shores of the Hawaiian Islands. It's actually already started. The Lanai buoy is showing about a 3 to 4 foot swell at 12 to 14 seconds. And we're expecting that to continue to build over the next 12 to 24 hours. So the cams on Surfline that are on the south shores of the Hawaiian Islands, for example, Ala Moana Bowls, Waikiki, and Diamond Head, what you see today, right now, it's going to be bigger tomorrow, and it's going to be even bigger on Thursday as that swell starts to peak as Lane makes its approach towards the Hawaiian Islands. So, one of the challenges that we have in these kind of situations is, Surfline is a recreational forecasting business. And, as we communicate when the waves are going to be good, we really need to be careful because obviously there's a bigger kind of picture here, and that's, the protection of life and property as well. So we have to kind of tread the water there a little bit. We don't want to put people in harm's way. And we also want to make sure that our users are going to the right place for the official sources of information related to life and property stuff, such as the Central Pacific Hurricane Center and the Weather Service office in Honolulu. So, but yes, we are expecting a pretty good south to southeast swell over the next 24 to 36 hours, right off the coast of Honolulu, probably a 6 to 8 foot kind of thing as it peaks late tomorrow into tomorrow night. But I'll bring up kind of our South Shore forecast stuff here. And we've got the swell peaking, late tomorrow. This is, our kind of our core human forecast product. Jonathan Warren put it out just a little while ago. He's one of our lead forecasters, been doing the Hawaii forecast for a really long time. So he's got the surf coming up to, 5 to 8 feet there through tomorrow, and that continues into Friday and then tapers off into the weekend. And, we can kind of interrogate some of our model products as you look at that. So like a 6 to 8 foot swell, as I was mentioning, really filling in tomorrow and into tomorrow night. So a good time to look at the Surfline webcams on the south shore of Hawaii tomorrow.
Very good. Thank you for that, Mark. I'll go ahead and share my screen. We'll do a little talk just because I know there's some folks watching tonight. And here is Hurricane Lane, Category 4. Last reading was 155 mile an hour winds. And you can see the eye here. It was much more pronounced earlier this afternoon, our time. Hawaii, don't forget, is 6 hours behind us. So Hawaii Standard Time is 6 hours back. But we can see here in the last couple of frames that there's a little bit of a wobble in the eye. And if you look down here to the southwest of the storm, you can see some of this troughing coming up. And that's a little bit of southwest shear that's heading up into the storm. So that's starting to have a little bit of an effect. You can see that eye wall sort of bowing in here at the last minute, and it's going through maybe a recycling phase here. And so, or eye wall restructuring phase. And so here's Hurricane Lane's latest information: 155 miles an hour, pressure up to 935 millibars from 9:30 this morning. Movement is west-northwest at 8 miles per hour. It is expected to turn to the north-northwest remain a major hurricane as it approaches some of the islands here. It looks like the Big Island is no longer in the cone of uncertainty. That does not mean that it will not get some of the outwards effects from this. In fact, when we have heavy banding along the east side of the storm, these mountaintops here, this is going to be a really tricky situation because you have lee side and windward side of the islands. And when you get a lot of moisture banking up against the backside of these mountains, you can get some pretty phenomenal rainfalls. And in this kind of a situation, when you have a major hurricane coming up from the south, we could see rain in excess of 20 inches, which means that landslides could be a major factor here, and flooding. So flooding is always the most deadly part of a hurricane. And we just hope that the folks in Hawaii, are going to be okay overall. The Hawaii Hurricane Local Statement is here. On this page, you can see all the information here, hurricane watches and warnings. For the most part, the public advisories pretty much have hurricane warning for Hawaii County, Maui County, hurricane watches for Oahu and Kauai, and that includes Niihau. And so that pretty much is going to be affecting the islands. It looks like the storm is moving off towards the west a little bit more and more as time goes on, which is a good thing. Before, this storm was really starting to hug in right along the the west side of the Big Island. So now it's looking like it may head off to the west a little sooner. That's going to be from some of the surface trade winds pushing it away once it gets into an area of really relaxed winds and relaxed atmospheric conditions. So this is our data scope viewer from WeatherFlow. If we look at our mimic imagery, get a better look at the eye, and we can see a really solid concentric ring around the eye. But as we go in time, we start to see that upper shear starting to nudge into the southwest portion of the storm. It looks like a secondary eye wall is trying to form and may be going through another restructuring phase at this point. We don't know yet. We don't know if it's going to weaken or to strengthen. Sometimes that's a sign of strengthening once again. And this storm certainly has been surprising because it went to Category 5 last night, 160 miles an hour, and back down to 155. But it's holding the wind. So hurricane hunters have been repeatedly clarifying that for us over and over again, and the storm doesn't look like it's backing down for right now. But it is forecast to weaken a little bit as it goes to the north. And I think I'll end with that, and we'll get back on track with Mark Willis. And I think we're going to move into, unless anybody has any more questions about wave modeling and forecasting.
I have. I know we're wanting to talk about some of the models and tools that you guys use, but I'm going to screen share this, and this may be a little off topic as well. But this is a graph of weather fatalities in the year 2017, and just kind of some of the dangers that weather present. And as you can see, obviously flood and heat are big weather causes of death, but also rip currents. Rip currents was third last year with 70 deaths. And I know there's been several this year, and even Mark with you guys out on the Carolina coast. So I know the waves and the wind and all that have to deal with rip currents. Do you guys provide rip current forecasts, or maybe in your forecast discussion to your surfers or those who use your products say, hey, this area could see higher cases of rip currents?
We leave that to the Weather Service, but we try to support them in any way they need. For example, Shay had mentioned the project we have with Socorro it's called the WebCat, Web Applications Testbed Project, where we put up a network of cams in the Southeast United States. And one of the stakeholders in that project, Greg Dusek from the National Ocean Service, kind of the NOAA rip current dude. And this guy's the rip current guy. He's built some probabilistic rip current models and things like that. He's using some of the cams in this project basically to detect rip currents, and we're really excited to be a part of that. The other thing that Greg and some of the local lifeguards and some of the other agencies around here are working on is they have you mentioned some of the deaths that occurred here. It's been a kind of a bad summer for it, to be honest with you. They really want to look at rip currents near structures right now. And I think they want to improve some of their messaging with rip currents that may occur near things like jetties and piers that they feel like they can improve. So they're actually working on, they're going to put some dye out in the water and basically detect it through drones and try to study that a little bit. And we're going to try to support that too, to, if we can, to give them another view of it through our webcams and some of our Cam Rewind products. So yeah, that was a long-winded answer to your question, but no, we don't provide rip currents, but we try to support them in any way we can.
So your webcam network, is that something that you have a separate server for? I mean, what is that something that's funded, or is that something your company just invests in to get data for all purposes? Like if you get a webcam in one spot, you want it to be for waves, also the beach, the conditions, and everything involved, or is this separately funded for something else?
So it's kind of a mix, but for the most part, it's all funded by us to support our business. And we try to put cams strategically, just like you guys do it at Weatherflow, where the surf's going to be good for us, and surf spots and things like that. And it's a major operation. We have about 510 webcams on the Surfline platform, and to keep cams streaming all over the world, the servers and just the maintenance and things like that, it's a major operation. So just like we have a forecast team, we've got a modeling team, we also have a camera team that makes sure that those cams are running smoothly and delivered to our customers. But yeah, we do. I would say 95+% of them are supported by us for surfing purposes, but we've dabbled with other things like the Sakura project, like I mentioned, that's for a variety of use cases, from rip currents to wave run up to detecting whales. But for the most part, they're for surfing.
How many cams do you guys have, Mark? I know you go on your website, there's a lot, but do you have a number on how many you have, and maybe what area has more than others?
510 cams are on the Surfline platform as of August 22nd, 2018, but it's growing all the time. The majority of them are Southern California, or I would say California in general, Florida, Virginia, Outer Banks region, New Jersey, New York, and around some other population centers. But we've got international cams too. We've got a network in Indonesia. We've got obviously a lot in Hawaii, especially the North Shore, but a growing network on the South Shore of Oahu and other locations as well. We've got cams in Israel. Believe it or not, the Mediterranean Sea gets surfed as well. So yeah, we've got webcams all over the world.
I tell you, I just got one, and I'm not going to say on the show where I'm putting it yet because it's going to be a surprise. But I tell you, just that one power over Ethernet camera with a pan, tilt, and zoom capability, not easy to pick out. Number one. Number two, I'm concerned about lightning. So, I mean, I've got surge protection, but, with that many cams, I can't imagine what the, maintenance and labor might be with it. I mean, I guess you have folks that will take a look at them if they ever go down.
Yeah, and we've, learned, we've done this for a long time. So we've made mistakes and we've adapted and we've gone to new technologies and things like that. But yeah, you mentioned lightning. We had one cam in Miami that within I want to say 2 months, we went through 4 cams there because of lightning, man. It was we need to do something different, guys. But yeah, we've got stories like that. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Understood. Well, tell us a little bit more. Let's see. We do have a viewer question, and I was going to ask to kind of back up a little bit and talk a little bit more about wave height period fetch. So Bernie Sabo, he's from Tampa Bay. He's questioning in from Hilton Head, and he says, "Can you educate me on wave height period fetch, etc.? I pretend to know these scientific terms, but don't know how they translate into desired surf conditions." So tell us a little bit about how that works. How does wave height, what is period fetch? When we talk about seconds, what does all this mean?
Sure. So wave height is, the easy one. That's the distance between the trough and the crest of a wave. And we measure waves at Surfline as they First of all, there's a deep water wave, and those are typically measured by things like buoys and satellites and things like that. But then there's the surf height as well, which is very different than what the wave height in deep water is, because as waves interact with the sea floor, the bathymetry, they do all kinds of crazy things. They bend, which is a simple term for refraction. They break, which is shoaling. But yes, the wave height in deep water is usually pretty different than what it is in shallow water as it breaks. But wave period is kind of what we call the X factor in surf forecasting. It can go a little under noticed sometimes, especially to newer wave forecasters. But wave forecast, really got to get wave period right, because it's related to first of all, the textbook answer is the time it takes for successive waves to pass a fixed point in the ocean, such a buoy. But the complicated answer is wave period is also directly related to how deep a wave extends into the ocean, how fast it moves, and then ultimately the breaking wave height as well. So wave period is really, really important to what we do. And fetch, that's just a simple term for the area over the ocean that winds blow. And I'm going to share my screen one more time, because we have what I think is one of the most powerful wave forecasting products in the world that really highlights fetches of interest as it may relate to you based on where you're at. So let me try to share my screen one more time. Okay. So what this product is it's basically a fetch product, and this is for Hawaii, and it's essentially showing you what winds are aimed at Hawaii, all over the Pacific Ocean. And the first thing I'm highlighting here, this was 96 hours ago. And notice the little green and blue shadings up near the Aleutian Islands. That's what that's telling you, is there's winds over 20 knots aimed at the Hawaiian Islands. So that gives us an idea. Okay, I need to pay attention to this thing because it might produce waves for us. The concentric circles are giving you a rough idea of how long the swell is going to take to travel. So each ring represents a day of swell travel time. So right now, so we've got, this was 96 hours ago. You got that thing in the Aleutians, which, by the way, that swell is still arriving now on the north shores of Hawaii. You got a couple, some typhoon activity in the West Pacific that also could potentially send some westerly swell to the Hawaiian Islands. And then, as you move through it, you see Lane come into the picture with obviously some elevated winds aimed at Hawaii as well. So this is one of our core forecast products that analyzes fetch, gives you an idea of what storms or weather systems in an ocean basin have winds aimed at you of relevance, because that's what's going to produce waves for you. So that's kind of wave height, period, and fetch in a nutshell for your question. But the other thing is really complicated as to making a surf forecast. You got to get the local winds right, because that really is going to impact wave conditions. So if you have strong onshore winds here in the Outer Banks, which is east or northeast, that's usually pretty bad because it creates choppy conditions. But an offshore wind meeting up maybe an incoming swell that was produced from a weather system far away, that's really what we look for, because it produces much cleaner kind of groom swells and surf to ride that surfers tend to prefer. And the other thing is tide. Tide is a big influencer in surf quality. For example, the last couple of weeks, it feels like, we've had anomalously strong high pressure off of the southeast U.S., which is not good for swell production. But we've had these little kind of tiny swells impacting us. So tide is really, really important, because when the waves are that and the swell's that small, you almost have to find a low tide for waves to really break. High tide, usually you just get, it either looks flat or you have these tiny little waves kind of breaking on the beach. So tide and local winds are really critical to making a good surf forecast as well.
Yeah, we know that all too well on the southeast coast with a 6 to 8 foot tidal swing, where it's usually a better swell on the incoming tide, maybe a couple of hours past low heading into high. But once it gets to high, waves get mushy. That's got to be tricky as well. I mean, not only the fetch, the swell, the height period, but also the tides to go with it as well, and shelf water. So large swell coming in from the Atlantic, a lot of times you figure these category 4 and 5 hurricanes that are out in the Atlantic, you think we're going to get these monster 10 to 18 foot waves, but we never do. Because our shelf waters are so shallow, it just knocks the swell down. So here's a question. This is more of a debunking kind of a question. A lot of folks, especially here, we say 2 feet, but 2 feet means thigh to stomach high. And so a lot of folks, I remember when I was younger, we used to argue, are we measuring from the back of the wave or are we measuring from the front of the wave? When you're doing your swell heights, which one are we doing here?
So, well, first of all, it's like we're all the stuff that, like that product I showed you in Hawaii that John issued. We're always looking at the face height of waves for that product in particular for our breaking wave forecast. So that's, knee high is 2 feet, waist high is 3 feet, chest high is 4 feet, and head high, we call it, I think it's like the 5 foot wave, because you think of somebody surfing, they're usually kind of crouched over a little bit, and the average, person's maybe, almost 6 foot tall, maybe a little bit less. But we're looking at face height, which is trough to crest, the front of the wave, not the back of the wave.
Thanks for clarifying that. All right, I won.
But if this is a really controversial topic, I feel, because if you go to different places in the world, it's all what the local communities have picked up. For example, Brazil, a lot of places in Australia, and a lot of places in Hawaii, there's large portions of the surfing population that do call it a little bit differently, such as the back of the waves, like you're talking about, or swell height. And that can make it very challenging to get our message across sometimes.
Exactly. I was going to say Teahupo'o is a prime example because it might be a 6 foot swell, but it breaks below sea level. And so you end up with a 15-foot face on a 6 foot swell.
Yeah, and the other thing about Teahupo'o is, it's like that wave, it just gets really wide, right? It doesn't really need to be that high, but it's just that then you could fit like a truck in that thing, the barrel, because it's just the way that the seafloor, the change is so abrupt. It's that wave is, one of the 7 wonders in the surfing world.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic. I saw some meteorologists last year talking about Teahupo'o, and they were just amazed that, it breaks below sea. Just the whole concept of how it breaks is amazing. So, any other questions, guys, about modeling? I know I was going to ask one more, but I want to leave it up to the rest of the guys to ask anything at this point. Nope. Okay. Real quick before we get into some of the new things that you guys are doing, which models are you using for Surfline? I think we have WaveWatch 4 is the newer one. GFS. Is NAM worked into that as well? I think the Hurricane, the global one, and then you have the Hurricane wave modeling went away. And so what are we using now? What are I know the Euro is on the table still.
So we run a version of WaveWatch 3 with kind of our own twists and turns to it. One of those twists and turns is we assimilate satellite data and make adjustments on the fly. But kind of what we look at as our specialty is really that last mile before the ocean hits the coast and that near shore zone, because that's kind of really our specialty. So we run a number of near shore models all over the world to really get that kind of zone in the coastal environment correct, because that's what's going to allow us to produce an accurate breaking wave forecast. So we've invested heavily in nearshore modeling, but we run a variation of WRF for certain places around the world, right now we're kind of what we're about to release probably later this year is we've had some success with applying a layer of machine learning and artificial intelligence to kind of that last mile of the coast to help us get breaking wave height forecasts a little bit more accurate.
That's pretty interesting. We're doing some stuff with the WRF as well, 2 kilometer range, but so you're working with some higher resolution models and some machine learning processes. So that's fantastic. I always wondered how you were supplementing those and getting some of the different outputs that I've never seen before. So that's really, really cool. It's worth the memberships, everyone. So if you're looking to get wave modeling and guidance, Surfline is the one you want for sure. Tell us a little bit about some of the new things coming.
Well, like for us, for the human forecast team, we're just trying to do things to make our content more engaging. Like we're doing more audio podcasts, we're doing more video and things like that. For a long time, I mean, we wrote this big long block of text, and that was kind of our analysis product. But We're just doing a lot of things to get our content more engaging and also simplified. And so I think over the next year, you're going to see some really fun new things that our human forecast team can do. As far as our modeling stuff, it's like I was talking about, some of the machine learning things that we're really working on, using some of our archived observations, that we really had since Sean started the company in 1985. We can make some adjustments to our shoaling algorithm, thing like that, to create better breaking wave height forecasts. So accuracy is a big thing that's going to improve. Camera technology is another one. You're going to see some really fun things that we can do with our cams over the next few months. And also, just being able to relive some of your surf sessions as well. There's a lot of stuff going on with sensors in the surf world, and as you kind of use that and combine it with some of the other great data sets that we have, it allows us to do some great things. So reliving your sessions, accuracy, and more engaging content. Those are kind of the three buckets that I think you're going to see some fun things at a Surfline over the next several months.
Fantastic. Awesome. We have another viewer question that just popped up. Brooke Figgins asks, can Surfline, this is a great question, by the way, I can't believe we didn't think of this, but can Surfline be used in any way to help forecast tsunamis after major earthquakes?
I think, first of all, we don't run like a tsunami model, but from an observation standpoint, I think the answer is yes. And from an audience standpoint, like, we've got one of the biggest coastal and ocean enthusiast audiences in the world. So we kind of look at Surfline as we have a responsibility to make sure that people get information about tsunamis when it's relevant. But you can also, we do have like I mentioned before, a pretty large webcam network that, could potentially observe tsunamis as well. But as far as, modeling and things like that, and the whole idea of protecting life and property, we leave that to the feds and our partners over the National Weather Service.
Yeah, that's usually that's always the best thing to do. Leave it to the authorities to issue all of their statements and advisories and warnings and whatnot. I know if move on to tweet of the week, or does anybody have any other questions?
I got one, Shay.
Sure, go ahead.
Hey, Mark, just quick question. With all the mesoscale high resolution models you guys are running, how many people do you actually have looking over, that high resolution model data and interpreting it from what's right and what's wrong, and putting it into your forecast?
Really good question. So it's a big effort. I mean, in our modeling team, we've got 4 full-time kind of physical oceanographers or data scientists, and then we've got several contractors that help support it as well. But as far as like the interpretation, like that's where that's really kind of up to my team, the team of meteorologists, where we've got 11 full-time meteorologists that are interpreting that stuff all the time, providing feedback to the modelers. But we also have a back-end validation system, right, which is obviously pretty important, where in real time, we can look at things like buoy observations compared to all of the different wave models that we produce. And that's great for us because we can interrogate the models and use that in our products, our human forecast product, but obviously great for our modelers as well, because it gives them an idea of bias and things like that, and problem areas that they need to think about addressing. So the modeling at Surfline is, just like I said, with the cams, the human forecast team is a really big effort.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, and Mark, I was going to kind of, I guess, add off to that. You were talking about the different pots that you guys work out of with Surfline. How many employees do you guys have throughout the company?
92.
Wow.
So it's, yeah. And I feel like, when I came back to Surfline in 2000, and I guess it was late 2011, early 2012, it was probably 40 or 50. And so we've doubled since then. And when I started my first time before I went to the Weather Service, gosh, we probably had 10 people. So it's been really fun to watch Surfline grow.
Definitely so. And I know Shay was talking about tweets of the week. One question, kind of, I guess, not really dealing with surf with you guys, is you living on the Outer Banks. How closely do you monitor the hurricanes and tropical storms and stuff out there? I know, just living here in North Carolina myself, that this is just a major hot spot. But I only knew a few people who actually live out there, and they always tell me, they get antsy this time of the year, and rightfully so. So, what's it like for you living out there?
I tell you, man, hurricanes mean something different to me now that I'm a homeowner on the Outer Banks than when I was a punk surfer several years ago. It's terrifying, man. Like I'm lucky enough to somehow live in a flood X zone, but it's it's scary, man. And it's I don't hesitate to leave when we have to. I mean, we left with Matthew. I've got 2 little kids, a wife that I don't want to put them in harm's way, but it's like you said, man, this time of year, it's like your blood pressure goes up and it gets nerve wracking, but it's exciting too, man. It's probably part of the reason why I chose the career path I did, but it's nerve wracking.
Well, I know the threat of hurricanes is serious, but you also have a beautiful view every day to look at. So I guess you have to kind of trade the good and the bad.
That's right. And what we hope for every year is fish storms, man, because that's perfect for surf. It produces swell, but no bad impacts. And hopefully we get some fish storms this year, because man, it's pretty quiet right now.
Yeah, very, very quiet. I always think of like Outer Banks is like where the surfing. We used to go up there to chase the safe surf. If there's a storm coming, it's almost like the Apocalypse Now scene where he's like, Lance, get out there and hit the waves, and bombs going off, and everything's going crazy. There's chaos, and it gets nuts up there, absolutely nuts.
Yep. So
let's see. Tell us a little bit about how our viewers can find you on any of the media platforms, Facebook, Twitter. Would you like to share that information with us?
Sure. So you can follow me at M Willis Surfline, both on Twitter and Instagram. I'm probably more active on Instagram than Twitter. Surfing it's bigger on. It's an interesting dilemma actually, because surfing's bigger on Instagram, but weather is bigger on Twitter. So I do both. But we also have our main accounts at SL Forecast, and that's our forecast team's social handle. Then our main kind of company's account at Surfline as well on all the social platforms.
Thank you very much. All right, Scotty, I'm gonna turn it over to you for the in kind of the last portion of the show here.
Thank you, Shay. I appreciate you leading the interview tonight. Good stuff right there. We will do tweets of the week right quick. I know where it's about 9:00. So if anyone has a tweet pulled up, Chris, I know you already called dibs on one. Do you have yours pulled up?
Yeah, I got it, Scott. Yeah,
all right, I'll let you go ahead. I've almost got mine.
Yeah, let's go over screen share here. All right, mine comes from shocker, NOAA Aircraft Operations Center, basically the NOAA Division of Hurricane Hunters from the P3 Orion. Kermit did an eyewall penetration earlier, I think about 12 hours ago on the hurricane out in Hawaii, and got this nice stadium effect picture once it broke through the eyewall. And you can see the nice vertical structure of the eyewall with the low-level clouds right on the surface. Absolutely gorgeous. There you can see the eyewall on their radar inside the aircraft.
I saw
Chris,
that.
Would you get on a plane and go on one?
Absolutely.
He had no hesitation.
Don't eat dinner the night before breakfast that morning.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to go through the eyewall of a hurricane on an aircraft. That'd be awesome.
And no hesitation there. Yeah, I saw that tweet earlier today, and we saw that last year, the stadium effect. I can't remember what hurricane it was. There were several major ones last year, but just seeing that is just amazing. And
once those guys fly through those eye walls, the plane is going to drop 2,000 feet, and they let it happen basically because when you're in an aircraft, your autopilot goes off barometric pressure, and once you get to the middle of a hurricane, barometric pressure drops out, so the plane drops.
Kudos to them, folks. I couldn't do it.
I remember hearing about mesovortices inside the eye wall where Hurricane Hugo and the pilots went in, and they dropped, I think, 3,000 feet. Yeah. And they
just straight down.
They came up. I mean, it was a pretty big jolt. A couple people, I think, at least one person got hurt on board. they said, wow, that was the worst one they've ever had. I mean, a drop for 3,000 feet for an average person would be the end of the world. These guys are kind of used to dropping that fast.
Yeah, 200 feet is just kind of like a little rattle in the seat. You get to 1,000 feet, and it's like, okay, that got my attention. 3,000 be fun.
Crazy stuff. Jared, I see that you have yours put up, so I'll let you go ahead.
Yep, absolutely. So this is a little tweet thread of the week. I was so good at just doing singular tweets, and then I started doing Instagram, and I did one of my own. I just keep breaking the rules anyway. But this is from Justin Gibbs at the Warning Decision Trading Division. I liked it better when they were the Warning Decision Training branch. It was a little easier to say. And this is just great. I'd love to explain to someone from 100 years ago how we forecast hurricanes. We have satellites in outer freaking space that zap lots of different pictures back to us. We fly airplanes into the center of the storm, use supercomputers to build a replica of that hurricane and all the weather all over the globe. And we can look at all that and tell basically where it's going and can make a pretty good guess at how strong it'll be when it gets there. People could even use their handheld computers to see the data come in live and armchair quarterback the forecasters in real time. And the response would be, he's a witch, burn him. I think I love stuff like this because it is remarkable just how much the technology has evolved. And I've got Lane up right now on Ghost 15, and it feels like I've stepped back 10 years. It's like we really need Go West, and we really need Ghost 17 over there as Goes West, and it's just remarkable just how much of a change that we've seen just even in the last year from observing hurricanes with, Ghost 13 and 15, and now, Ghost 16, and pretty soon Ghost 17 for most hours of the day.
Yeah, for most hours of the day. I'll go ahead and pull up mine. Mine's not dealing with hurricanes. So this was a tweet from Brad Panovich. Yesterday, Venezuela had a 7.3 earthquake. And this was a seismograph from Dogwood Stamp Mountain, North Carolina, which is here in western North Carolina. And as you can see, that hurricane was strong enough that we actually felt some of the seismic waves all the way up here in North Carolina. So I always find this fascinating when we see bigger earthquakes occur that our little seismograph here in North Carolina can pick up on this. So again, as you can see, it picked up on that yesterday. So this is my tweet of the week. It always fascinates me how when the earth shakes far, far away, you can still feel it where you are. So
fascinating. It shows how sensitive the instrumentation is. That's pretty cool. Well, let's see. My tweet doesn't have to do with storms or anything. This is an optical illusion or a phenomenon known as crepuscular rays. I've been seeing a lot of folks posting pictures going, what's going on here? I've never seen anything like this before. And this time of the year, we see this on the other side of the sky, and those are called anti-crepuscular rays. It's an old Latin word. It sounds kind of like a crusty word, but it's not. It has to do with light and photons and whatnot. But basically what this is the sun is setting and you have clouding that creates a shadowing effect. And in this case, the beams from the shadowing effect are down below the higher clouds, the higher cirrus clouds. So you can sort of see it, the shadowing in between the top of that cloud and the higher cirrus clouds. And so sometimes you get these light beams that sort of disappear down on the other side of the sky, in the eastern side during sunset. And those are the anti-crepuscular rays, and they can be a little bit deceiving sometimes because it looks like the beams are coming from there. But if you think of like a train track and you look down the track for miles, a nice straight piece of track for miles, you'll see the track kind of come together. And that's the exact same optical illusional effect that goes on there. So if for all the viewers there, if you see this kind of effect, however it looks, when you see some beams coming out from behind a cloud, those are called crepuscular rays. So just a little bit of tidbit of information for those out there watching.
Yeah, we had a few of those a couple of weeks ago. I think Candace actually got a picture of some a couple of weeks ago and shared it on Twitter. So
yeah, I did. That was very, very cool.
Uh-oh, we lost her connection.
Yeah.
You gotta love technology there. So we lost Candace's feed there, but she got some good pictures of them as well. So.
Wow, the audio is still coming through. I thought I heard that movie one time.
Oh, all right. Oh gosh! All right, I don't know what to do.
The aliens are.
All right.
Okay,
There we
she's
go.
gone.
Sorry, yeah, I had to check.
Anyways, let's finish up our show. Next week we have Chris Ray and Wesley Shaw on with us from MyCoast, mycoast.org. They kind of document things that go along on the coast, storm surge, flooding, events like that. So they're going to join us next week to talk about their program. And then September 5th, we're going to be talking about topographical, I think I said it right, influences on hurricanes with Dr. Jan DeHart from Colorado State. So that's what it looks like for the next couple of weeks here at the Carolina Weather Group. As always, if you have any guests or show topics that you would like for us to talk about, please feel free to reach out to us, and we would love to get those topics and those guests on that you request. I will say looks like we're booked up through the end of October. We have an open show on the 12th of September. We kind of strategically put that there because that's the peak of hurricane season. So we'll see if anything in the tropics develops between now and then. So besides that, we are fully booked through the end of October. So again, any guests or topics you would like, just let us know and we will get those. It may not be soon, but maybe November, December on into 2019. I can't believe we're saying that. And, as we say that, Shay's got the graphic of peak hurricane season, and Shay, we're really getting close to that happening.
That's correct. We are getting towards the end of August. This is the time when we see the highest amount of activity typically see the highest amount of activity during the tropical Atlantic basin. So we will continue to watch. Everything's quiet, and sea surface temperatures are cooler than normal in some of the main spots, like the main development region and other spots as well. But we continue to watch the Gulf of Mexico and Southeast United States for cold fronts that come across and stall out, and then we get homegrown systems. But other than that, fairly quiet. We're enjoying that, and the predictions are still for a below normal season with only one major hurricane in the Atlantic basin. So we don't know when it's going to happen or if it's going to happen, but if it does, hopefully it won't affect land.
Yeah, Shay, I was actually seeing some folks post on the National Hurricane Center's 5-day forecast, and they have a little bit of area concern off of the African coast. I think it was like 10 or 20%. But
well, we all know the 384 hours can get across.
That's right.
It always does.
And you can watch Shay's weather flow information. You can check out Mark's surf cams, and we'll have you covered with those hurricanes moving in. So again, we want to appreciate you guys. Or say our appreciation to you all for joining us tonight. Mark, once again, thank you for joining us here on the Carolina Weather Group. We'd love to have you back sometime.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And I'm really glad the massive internet outage on the Outer Banks did not prevent me from coming on today. So thanks again.
Yes, we're glad they got that fixed. We really are. And like I said, we'd love to have you come back on and talk with us at any time. It's been a great show.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So for everyone here at the Carolina Weather Group, we hope you have a great weekend. If you can make it out to Weatherproof on Saturday, come on out, see us. If not, we will see you back here